Hey everyone, it's Evan here from the Trade Risk on Friday, July 14th, here with a weekend market recap video. We're going to cover all of the major markets, the current market environment, and then finish off looking at some sector analysis. So we're going to jump right into the charts today. S&P 500 finishing the week strong, up 47 basis points on Friday. And to finish out the week, let's go to that weekly chart here. You can see up almost 1.5%, 1.41%, a very impressive move by the bulls here. And very importantly is we are getting resolve to the upside. So we've been consolidating for the past 5-6 weeks, and you can see we are now making a new all-time closing high on the daily and the weekly chart of the S&P 500. That's bullish action as we head into earnings season. We saw earnings get kickoff on Friday here with the bank sector. Actually not the best initial response, but the market still continue to work itself higher throughout some other sectors that we'll get into later on. So the bigger picture here on the weekly time frame, this uptrend continues. Recent sideways chop has resolved higher, and bulls have that momentum behind their back. Now back on the daily chart, we did our midweek video right here on Wednesday, and we talked about that this gap up with no attempt to get filled, and we said, you know, there is momentum being built. And will we be able to clear these highs where we failed before? That was the question heading into the end of the week. Can the bulls hold on to that strength? Can they add to those gains? Can we finish up near the highs? And yes, we got the answer to all of that, of course. It is yes. So they did. We got some momentum. Is it easy to jump in right here? Probably not, just given the fact that we've effectively gone up 6 days in a row. We technically didn't with this slight reset here, and this was a good reset. But really, you know, it's almost been kind of this V-shaped move from the bottom end of this range up to new highs. So longer term, you know, weekly chart, daily chart, things look good structurally. The uptrend, the momentum is building. If you're very tactically saying, do I want to, you know, put all the eggs in and get in right here? Well, it depends where you want to put your stop. You know, that gets into strategy development, but could see some, you know, pause here as we've gone up now, pretty quick order, digest some of these gains. We have earnings coming up, so we're going to have a lot of influence between different sectors and companies reporting. So certainly keep that in mind, but bulls absolutely have the checkbox is in their favor at this point. Breadth also notably strong here on Friday and really picked up for the better part of all of this week. So that's the S&P 500. The IWM, we're still waiting a little bit here. Remember, the IWM, we talked about sort of the almost leadership role it took throughout the beginning of June as it started to really ramp up towards these highs and hold up nice and strong, while some of the other major indices pulled back or felt a little more lackluster. The IWM, again, still, I mean, absolutely not doing anything wrong here, but still consolidating. So it didn't get that big breakout move like the S&P 500 did. You can see here on the weekly chart, very, very clear range here between 139 and 142. We have not yet cleared above 142. I'm watching that. I'm staying sort of patient for it. Right now, the bulls in control as they have us at the upper end of this range, and we are holding up high and tight here. But let's see if we get that move through these highs. If we can start to lift here, that'll be a nice sort of secondary wind or rotation behind this market to help fuel sort of everything higher. The volume this week was very light. I mean, and I think this goes for almost all markets. And as we go into summertime, continue to go into summertime, we may want to expect volume to sort of taper off like it is so far. But let's keep an eye on these highs here above 142. That's something of interest. And again, you can see 8 and 20 period are bullishly aligned. Let's see if the bulls can get us through that next week. And the NASDAQ 100, very impressive. I mean, in pure V-shaped 2017 fashion, we are just marching higher. We've really kind of taken out these highs here. We got new closing highs. So this is the highest close since this big shakeout day here. This was the day that started essentially this big pullback move. This was back on the beginning of June, the 9th. And you can see this is the move that set the tone for us to kind of pull back, make this sort of two-legged pullback here. We got the highest close since this time. So still got a little bit further to go towards those highs, but bulls very much in control here. 8 and 20 period crossed over. This gap higher holding up, momentum building. So very impressive. Certainly impressed me. Certainly took me for surprise on these cues. But here we are working themselves higher. And again, a lot of these companies that make up a large percentage of this move are running up into earnings. So it'll be interesting to see what that reaction is after the earnings. Are they pricing those things in now? Do we get a sell the news event, or is it just a complete, acceleration higher, more good news to come? That's what we're going to be waiting on when some of those companies start reporting. So that's the overall market environment. Things looking good. Again, take a look at the action here. We are up 6 days in a row. We've kind of V-shaped higher towards these levels where we closed the week. So again, if you're looking to jump in right here at the close, depending on your stops, time frame, all that stuff, a little bit of advice there just to say, hey, we've covered pretty good ground in short order. Let's see how these prices handle. So that's the market environment. Let's get into some other markets here. We'll go to TLT next, which tried to stabilize this week, and it did stabilize this week, up 0.5%. Didn't quite close at the highs, but that selling pressure, that down move has sort of abided here. We have held in there, holding above this 122.60 level. And again, volume light, bearishly aligned 8 and 20 period moving average. Not the best, most optimistic bullish landscape here for the bulls, but if we can continue to stabilize, put in a sturdy higher low, some support here, maybe that starts to change. Have to see it to believe it at this point. So a little more waiting just to see what happens here. Not too interested in jumping in one way or the other, at least for my strategy. We'll go to oil next. Wrapped up the week again with a nice gain, 5.5%, nearly to the upside, basically recovering all of last week's sell-off. So remember, we got that pullback last week. We put in that higher low at $9, and we're right back to these highs here. So starting to look like maybe there's some structure here. Maybe we get some short-term trend that develops if we can punch through these highs next week. We take out these highs, and all of a sudden we have higher lows and higher highs in place. So good start. Zoom out from a longer-term weekly basis, structural. We're still in a downtrend if you want to take it from the highs here from March, but again, tactical players will find some, some bullishness there in the short term. Natural gas also kind of just holding, tight here, not really giving things back up yet, not pushing through the highs, but just moving sideways. I'm paying attention to it. I like the potential here for this bullish resolve for a continued bounce higher, for this double bottom, as it were, from the March lows to where we recently washed out from July, to kind of take shape and be the bigger sort of pattern at work here. Still waiting, still watching. Volume very light over these past 3 days. So see if we can get above 675, 685, get above this area. That might be a little more comfort. Weekly charts, still nothing, nothing that exciting, of course. 8 and 20 period bearishly aligned. So there's some bigger momentum working against this daily chart, but again, tactical swing trade here might be in the cards, so I'll be watching that next week. And if we go to the metals, you can see GLD had a nice week, 1.29%, recovering some of the damage from last week, finding some support right around this 116 area. We sort of talked about this has been a general kind of bounce in just an influential level going back a couple of months. And you can see we are getting that bounce, kind of an oversold bounce to be expected, so to speak. Let's see if the bulls can get momentum, can build off of it, can hold these gains, or is this something that just gets sold into and we continue in this downtrend? So GLD, not that exciting to me. Silver, again, kind of like we talked about in our midweek video, a little more interesting just because of this kind of washout move here, more of a V-shaped, higher volume type of move. Slightly more interesting to me, but the 8 and 20 period still curled lower. Weekly chart, still nothing that exciting. Sellers appear to be in control on both those metals, so not, not my cup of tea on either one of those. So that's gold, that's silver. I think that is everything. Let's get into some of those sectors and look at what's working. We got quite a bit that's working. We'll start with tech, which is just, again, very similar to the NASDAQ 100. It's just on this fierce sort of V-shaped rally. We're not seeing a tremendous amount of volume, but again, up 6 days in a row, 8 and 20 period fastly curled back up, got this gap in place. So it looks like we're sort of beelining back to those highs. XLK certainly helping this market move higher this week. IYT, more of the steady sort of pursuit here. We've been talking about this one for a little while now. Weekly weekly chart, you can see transports just breaking out in very clean, sort of orderly fashion here. This is constructive for the market. That continues to look good. XLV and healthcare, biotech, this continues to work. Again, we were talking about this sort of pullback, this consolidation to the 20 period. Got a nice uptick in volume here on this recent breakout, so I like this sector, continue to like this sector. Playing it directly with IBB, still involved in this trade, so still holding the IBB outright for a long position. Starting to pick back up here, get a nice uptick in volume yesterday on Thursday, so we'll see if we can get back to these old highs up here. XBI, equal weighted, looks good. So biotech, healthcare, it's a good sector that continues to act well. Even materials are looking pretty strong here. We've been talking about these on and off, but you can see here back towards these recent highs, 8 and 20 period, getting a nice distance there. So some momentum building as we push to new highs here. So materials look good. If you're going to go even more specific, go to the metals and mining here, XME, which we don't often talk about, but you can see really the weekly chart kind of speaks to the nice picture here. You've had, kind of this strong move throughout the end of 2016. Then most of this year, it really just pulled back, consolidated, almost has a rounding sort of pullback look here. And if we can see the XME continue and hold above $31 or so, get this 8 and 20 to curl back over on the weekly, XME could be some nice rotational plays there into next week, into the summertime. And on the downside, although downside that is catching a bid now, is finally XLU. You can see on the week here up just almost 1%, but finally putting in a green week, finally putting in some type of stance there. The volume picked up on the selling, finding a little bit of a bounce and some support at this prior range here from March and April. I think the staples look a little more impressive, maybe a little more actionable even for this bounce. Take a look at the weekly chart here. So we saw 5 weeks down of just sell, 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 and then we got the nice hammer this week at a prior level of interest, this 54.50 level, undercut support, hammered above it. I like that as a potential sort of bounce candidate. Maybe it needs to, play around in here and chop around just a little bit, but I like the potential reversal and maybe rotation play back into some of those staples. So that, I think, rounds up this weekend's video. I hope you guys did great out there trading. Remember, we do have earnings season pretty much amongst us now, so keep an eye on those dates. And as always, thanks for watching. If you're new here, do subscribe to our channel. We do these videos a few times a week. And thanks again for watching. Talk to you again soon.